Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to take a stroll down memory lane and look at the legends of War Thunder's aviation back in the times of old, sometime around 8 to 10 years ago. For this episode, we'll take a look at Britain's old reliable, the fighter that defined the 6-3 battle rating with its contemporaries in 2015 to 2016, the Spitfire Mark 24. We'll talk about how it was back in the day and compare it to how it is now. Since this is a new series, I think I will do one episode every month, starting with the Spitfire Mark 24, followed by probably the Japanese N1K2 Ja, and so on. The Spitfire Mark 24 was added in 2014 as the end of the Spitfire line, culminating in what is known as the Griffon Spitfires. The Griffon Spitfires on War Thunder are characterized as Spitfires that sacrifice a very negligible part of their maneuverability for an immensely more powerful engine. The Spitfire Mark 24 is one of the very few Spitfires in game to not have seen World War II, introduced into service in late 1945 and served as far as 1955 with the Hong Kong Auxiliary Air Force. The Spitfire Mark 24 has the Rolls-Royce Griffon 61 engine and differed from other Spitfires with its enlarged tail section inspired by the Supermarine Spiteful project that did not enter production. The Griffon 61 engine was the most powerful Griffon engine in-game and gave the Spitfire Mark 24 its moniker, the Spacefire. Although other Spitfires were also given the Spitfire moniker of Spacefire, like the LF Mark 9, the Mark 22, and other Griffon Spitfires, the Mark 24 took all these properties and amplified it to its maximum. When I started playing the Spitfire Mark 24 in 2015, it had a battle rating of 6.3, same as the Bearcat and the N1K2 Ja. Back then, stock Hispano Mark 5s were still shotguns and needed the new 20mm cannons upgrade to turn it into proper guns. It was also smack dab in the middle of the Hisparco age, where the Hispanos did not barely do any damage aside from the graphical sparks it made when making contact with enemy aircraft. Back then, the air targets belt of the Hispanos were also doubling as stealth belts, as the single tracer round that is in the air targets belt today did not exist. Back then, the contemporaries of the Spitfire Mark 24 were Focke-Wulf 190 D9s, D13s, TA-152Hs, and BF-109Ks. There were like 4 or 5 maps in the rotation then: Alternate History Berlin 1945, Ruhr, Norway, Hokkaido, and the occasional alternate history Krimsk. You also had a chance to see Saipan, but it was mostly for US and Japan players only. In Norway, you had an air spawn as the Allies, as back then the matchmaker was only US and UK versus Germany in that map. Same with Ruhr. To get an airfield to land on, you needed to prevent all your landing craft from getting sunk by the Germans. Otherwise, you'd have to land on a carrier with your non-carrier plane. Ruhr, however, was more straightforward with airfield takeoffs for a short while, then it became air spawn only. The meta then was to catch Germans attacking your team's B-29s or B-17s. Yeah, back then the B-29 and the B-17G were in each other's BR range, the B-29 being 6.3 and the B-17G being 6.0. The Focke-Wulf 190s would go for the bombers, and the Spitfires would dive on them. You'd think that the Allies were always at an advantage if they swarmed the fighters attacking the bombers, but actually back then there were no hard limits to bombers, so an 8v8 match could have as much as 6 bombers in the Allied team, and the Allied team were the bomber spammers since the German bombers that plague top tier now like the Ju-288 or HE-177 didn't exist back then. The Spitfire slowly climbed in battle rating in the coming years. First when it was up to 6.7 with the addition of the 150 octane fuel modification that grossly boosted its engine power, and recently it was up-tiered again to 7.0 where it is now. Now the Spitfire Mark 24 always faces jets from World War II and the post-war. The advantage of the Spitfire Mark 24 nowadays against jets is that it has superior sustained climb rate. The problem is, half the jets you will face at that battle rating have air spawns. the F-84, Me-262s, SK-60s, and the F-3Ds. Fortunately, your team will have jets with air spawns as well, so the furball forms around those sorts of jets, not you, giving yourself time to plan your engagements. Against jets, all you can really do is sit above them and pick a target that is making all sorts of mistakes. A jet that's probably stall climbing, giving up all its energy, or engaged in a turn fight are probably your targets of choice. A disadvantage of the Spitfire Mark 24 is that you're always at an energy disadvantage as long as you're fighting a jet that's solely focused on you. He will energy trap you, or just keep running passes over and over again. The F2H2 Banshee that's now at 7.7 is notorious for doing this because it really is just that powerful enough to just run away, even after a turn. But to be fair, even the F3D1 can outrun a Spitfire Mark 24 if it needs to, even shortly after a turn. You will have superior turn to them 100% of the time, and you can try to exploit jets that do not know what they're doing into probably turning with you. While Hispanos have definitely improved over the past 8 years, aircraft guns are continually being plagued by HE bugs where HE ammo does poor damage over control surfaces of the fuselage. Because of this, you're most likely required to use up a lot of your ammunition to score a kill. Fires also take too long to kill aircraft now, which means a fire is not a kill confirmation. You have to tear a wing apart or snipe the pilot to ensure a kill. But regardless, you have more than enough ammo to contend with many opponents. Even probably a B-29 or a Tu-4 in an encounter. However, how well you'll survive against the Tu-4's defensive guns is an entirely different question. So all in all, the Spitfire Mark 24 is a far cry from what it was 8 years ago. And now it's facing opponents it never dreamed of facing back then. It's not a bad plane. I certainly have done well in it currently, but the work you need to put in to put up a decent fight is more than necessary than the work you put in if, say, you flew the Meteor F Mark III instead. Exact same BR. The only upside to the Spitfire Mark 24 is that it's foldered, so you don't have to subject yourself to it if you really don't want to. But if you want a unique experience that takes your prop to the limits, the Spitfire Mark 24 is a really solid choice. Thank you for watching this video. I just have to admit, I felt really nostalgic playing the Mark 24, and I did this video because I wanted to revisit a lot of vehicles I've stopped using because they're either in awkward spots or changes have made them less capable over the years. I know I said the Japanese N1K2 JA is next, but if there are other old Thunder aircraft you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to put it down in the comment section below. Once again, thank you for watching. This is the Dr. MD. Godspeed.